It was supposed to be the perfect holiday. The McCann family, Jerry, Kate, and their 3 children, touched down in Portugal in late April 2007, seeking sun, rest, and a break from their busy lives as doctors in the UK. Their destination, Praia da Luz, a peaceful seaside town on the Algarve coast. Whitewashed villas, turquoise waves, and cobbled streets framed a picture postcard setting that promised nothing but serenity. Their accommodation was simple but comfortable. Apartment 5A in the Ocean Club Resort. It had 2 bedrooms and a sliding glass door that opened onto a quiet street. Madeleine, their bright-eyed 3-year-old daughter, shared a room with her younger twin siblings, Sean and Amelie. They were a young family, doing what many others had done before, trusting the safety of a resort town. Each evening, the adults in the group followed a routine. Jerry and Kate, along with a group of 7 friends, would meet for dinner at a nearby tapas restaurant, only 50 meters away from their apartment. They weren't careless. They took turns returning to the apartment every 15 to 30 minutes to check on the children. They never imagined anything could go wrong in a sleepy holiday village where the loudest noise came from the waves hitting the shore. May 3rd began like every other day, sun-drenched, calm, uneventful. The McCanns played by the pool. Madeleine laughed, chased her siblings, and asked her father why he never had brown eyes like hers. That night, they bathed the kids, tucked them into bed by 8:30 p.m., and headed to dinner around 8:45. At 10 p.m., Kate McCann returned for her routine check, and what she found, or rather, didn't find, would trigger one of the most haunting child disappearances in modern history. Madeleine was gone. The room was too quiet. The window was open, the shutter lifted. Her beloved cuddle cat still lay on the bed, but the girl herself had vanished, without a sound, without a witness. From that moment on, paradise turned into a nightmare that would echo for decades. The world didn't know it yet, but Madeleine McCann's name was about to be etched into history. May 3rd, 2007. The clock struck 10 p.m. as Kate McCann rose from the dinner table and made her way back to apartment 5A. It was her turn to check on the children, something they had done routinely all week. But this time, the silence inside the apartment wasn't comforting. It was suffocating. She opened the door to the children's room and froze. Madeleine's bed was empty. The covers had been pushed aside, her soft pink blanket gone. The bedroom window was wide open, the shutter raised unnaturally high. Cold air drifted in, along with a realization so horrifying Kate could barely process it. Madeleine was not hiding. She wasn't in the bathroom. She wasn't in another room. Madeleine was gone. Kate screamed. Her cries echoed through the walls of the Ocean Club. Guests ran. Jerry sprinted. Chaos engulfed what had been a peaceful resort moments earlier. Friends scattered in every direction, calling her name through darkened streets, the beach, and the town square. Someone ran to the front desk. Others pounded on doors. Word spread like wildfire. By 10:15 p.m., the local police, Polícia Judiciária, were contacted. But what came next would be the beginning of a cascade of missteps. The apartment wasn't sealed. Guests, staff, and even well-meaning friends walked through the scene, unknowingly contaminating fingerprints and footprints. The window that might have been the point of entry or exit was touched, moved, examined without gloves. Critical hours slipped away. Rumors started as quickly as the search. Some whispered of a stranger seen lurking by the complex days earlier. Others insisted Madeleine had woken and wandered. None of it felt solid. All anyone knew was this. A 3-year-old girl had vanished without a trace. By sunrise on May 4th, news agencies across Europe carried her picture. Her big eyes, one with a distinctive mark, haunted the screen. Her name trended across continents. The search was no longer just in Portugal. The entire world had started looking for Madeleine McCann. And already, the trail was growing cold. Within days of Madeleine's disappearance, Praia da Luz was no longer a quiet coastal village. It was the epicenter of a media storm unlike anything Portugal had ever seen. Satellite trucks lined the streets. Reporters jostled for angles outside apartment 5A. The faces of Kate and Jerry McCann, once ordinary British parents on holiday, now filled screens across Europe and beyond. Their daughter's photo, with that distinctive fleck in her right eye, became an icon of desperation and hope. But as the days turned to weeks and then months, that hope gave way to something darker. Under growing international pressure and with few solid leads, Portuguese investigators began to shift focus. Theories emerged, some outlandish, some chilling. And then came the moment that shattered everything. September 2007, 4 months after Madeleine vanished, Portuguese police officially declared Kate and Jerry McCann arguidos, formal suspects in their daughter's disappearance. The accusation sent shockwaves. How could grieving parents become prime suspects? Investigators hinted at inconsistencies in their statements. A police dog reportedly signaled cadaver scent in the apartment and on items linked to the McCanns. The media seized it like wildfire. Tabloids branded the couple cold, emotionless, suspicious. Photos of Kate looking tired or not crying were twisted into headlines. Conspiracy theories multiplied. Whispers of sedation, accidental death, cover-ups. None of it proven, yet all of it loud. The McCanns fought back, maintaining their innocence at every turn. They hired lawyers. They made public appeals. But trust had been fractured, not just between the McCanns and the police, but between the public and the investigation itself. By July 2008, Portuguese authorities dropped the charges and formally cleared Kate and Jerry of suspicion. But for many, the damage was done. The case had become not just about a missing child, but about who to believe and whether justice was still possible. The truth was drowning beneath headlines. And through it all, the one person still missing, still voiceless, was Madeleine McCann. 13 years after Madeleine vanished, her name reappeared in global headlines, but this time it was tethered to another name. A darker one, Christian Bruckner, a German drifter, a convicted pedophile, rapist, and burglar with a record that spanned decades and borders. In June 2020, authorities in Germany made a stunning announcement. They had a new prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Bruckner was already imprisoned for unrelated crimes, including the brutal assault of a 72-year-old American woman in Portugal. But now, investigators believed he could be tied to one of the world's most infamous cold cases. Bruckner had lived in southern Portugal intermittently from 1995 to 2007, in and around the Algarve. He drove a faded camper van and moved frequently between rentals and campsites. He was known for petty theft, but also had a deeply disturbing criminal past that stretched back to his teenage years. The case against him wasn't airtight, but it was chilling. Phone records placed him near Praia de Luz on the night Madeleine disappeared, just a kilometer from the McCann apartment. A mysterious call had been placed to his number around 7 p.m., less than 3 hours before Madeleine was last seen. Authorities described this as the critical breakthrough, a very significant piece of evidence. And yet, there are no fingerprints, no DNA, no eyewitness who could place him with the child. Bruckner denied everything. Through his lawyers, he called the accusations nonsense. But the German police weren't swayed. They publicly declared Madeleine was likely dead, and they believed Bruckner killed her. It was the first time a law enforcement agency had made such a definitive statement. Still, years passed. No charges were filed, no remains were found, and no confession came. Hope flickered again, and then dimmed. The world was left asking, was this finally the man who knew what happened to Madeleine McCann? Or just another name in a long, haunted list of could-have-beens? Between 2012 and 2022, the Madeleine McCann case slipped quietly from daily headlines. But for her family, silence was never peace. In those long, aching years, Kate and Jerry McCann refused to let the world forget. They stood at press conferences, sat for interviews, and walked through every anniversary of May 3rd as if it were a fresh wound. For them, Madeleine wasn't a headline. She was a daughter, frozen in time at age 3. But the investigation was no longer in motion. Leads had dried up. Witnesses aged. Files were combed again and again, but no new answers came. Even the once ambitious Operation Grange, a multi-million-pound UK review of the case, began to slow its pace. The public grew restless. Was this at last a cold case? And yet, her face remained everywhere. On posters, on digital reconstructions, imagining what she might look like at 6, then 10, then 15. She was a constant, heartbreaking reminder of the children who vanish without a trace, and of the few who never come home. She became a symbol, a spark for organizations championing child protection. Parents around the globe recognized the haunted gaze in Kate's eyes. They saw the weight Jerry carried each time he stepped before a camera, asking again, "Please, if you know anything." In private, their grief never hardened into acceptance. There was no grave, no confirmed death, just the echoing absence of a daughter, and a life paused in fear. Still, they marked her birthday every year. Leconde left a seat at the table. Hope was both a blessing and a curse, keeping them going and tearing them apart. For the world, the story of Madeleine McCann became a question. For her parents, it was a nightmare they still refused to wake from. Because in the silent years, the world may have stopped searching, but they never did. June 2023, 16 years after Madeleine McCann vanished without a trace, a convoy of police vehicles rolled into southern Portugal. Destination, Bergamo do Araide, a remote reservoir nearly 50 kilometers from Praia da Luz. For days, the usually silent waters were churned by divers and dredging teams. German and Portuguese investigators, joined by British police, arrived with equipment, cadaver dogs, and a mission wrapped in secrecy. The public didn't know what led them here, only that it was tied to Christian Bruckner, the long-suspected German drifter and convicted offender. The location wasn't random. Bruckner had reportedly frequented this very spot. He was known to have parked his camper van nearby and referred to it once, ominously, as his little paradise. Authorities believed he may have disposed of evidence here. But what exactly were they hoping to find? Over 3 days, the operation unfolded under tight security. Crews dug into the soil. Drones scanned from above. Items were seized, including fabric pieces and soil samples. But the mood remained tense and subdued. There was no confirmation of what, if anything, had been discovered. For the world, it was a sudden jolt, a reminder that the Madeleine McCann case was far from closed. For Kate and Jerry McCann, watching from England, it was a renewed agony, a flicker of dreadful hope that this time, maybe the search would bring them closer to the truth or closure. But when the search concluded, there was no big reveal. No body, no final answers. Authorities confirmed that DNA and forensic materials had been sent to Germany for analysis. But as of now, the results remain unreleased or inconclusive. Still, one thing was clear. The focus on Christian Bruckner had intensified. He remained a prime suspect, and the investigation was far from over. And so, the reservoir search ended not with resolution, but with a question hanging over dark waters. What lies beneath the surface of this place and of a man hiding behind silence? May 2025. The Atlantic breeze still whispers through the cliffs of Praia da Luz, but this time the wind carries urgency. Almost 2 decades since Madeleine McCann vanished, investigators are back where it all began. New search efforts, launched with unprecedented secrecy, stretch across rugged scrublands and remote paths near the beach resort. Armed officers, forensic teams, and cadaver dogs fan out under the blistering sun, combing every inch of earth for what might finally close one of the world's most haunting true crime stories. And this time, they're racing a clock. Christian Bruckner, the man long suspected of abducting Madeleine, could be freed from prison by September 2025. His current sentence for unrelated crimes is nearly up. Unless prosecutors can bring solid evidence linking him directly to Madeleine's disappearance, he may walk away, vanishing into Europe once again. But something stirs. In early June, searchers recover buried items in a desolate patch of land not far from the original resort. Bones, rusted firearms, child-sized fabric scraps. Some are too decomposed to immediately identify. Others are quickly sealed in evidence bags and flown to advanced forensic labs in Germany and the UK. The tests are being fast-tracked, but every hour feels heavier than the last. Public pressure mounts. Online forums explode with renewed speculation. News channels cut to live coverage as tents rise along the coast and drones hover over scorched fields. This is no longer just a mystery, it's a countdown. A final sprint for answers before justice, once again, slips away. Inside a court in Braunschweig, prosecutors prepare contingencies. If the DNA results return with a match, even partial, it could finally lead to an indictment. But if they don't, Bruckner, despite his monstrous past, could evade the one charge that truly matters. Kate and Jerry McCann remain silent, but their silence speaks volumes. Behind closed doors, a family waits for either the sound of closure or the silence of another dead end. As the calendar inches towards September, one question reverberates across Europe. Will the truth arrive before the suspect disappears again? It has been 18 long years since Madeleine McCann vanished from a holiday apartment in Portugal. 18 birthdays missed. 18 summers that came and went. 18 years of silence that still echoes louder than answers. To this day, no one knows for certain what happened on that warm night in May 2007. Was Madeleine taken by a stranger who had been watching? Was it a meticulously planned abduction or a crime of opportunity? Was the truth buried somewhere in the red soil of Praia da Luz? Or is it still walking free, cloaked in legal loopholes and time? Christian Bruckner remains the main suspect. And though years of digging, literally and figuratively, have turned up hints, theories, and circumstantial links, the one thing that matters most is still missing: irrefutable proof. For Kate and Jerry McCann, each public appeal has been a call to keep her name alive, not just in the media, but in the hearts of millions. They've faced public scrutiny, media firestorms, and unimaginable grief, all while holding on to a single hope: that someone, somewhere, might know something. That someday, somehow, the truth will surface. Madeleine's story has become more than a case. It is a symbol of the children still missing, of justice delayed, and of a system that sometimes stumbles even when the whole world is watching. Her photo has hung on bulletin boards, airport walls, news tickers, and police stations for nearly 2 decades. But behind that iconic image is a real child, and a question no one can answer. Where is Madeleine McCann? As new evidence is processed and deadlines close in, there's one thing the world agrees on: this case must not be forgotten. Because sometimes justice arrives years, even decades, too late. But when it comes, it matters. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. We dive deep into real-life mysteries and crimes that still shake the world. Justice may be delayed, but as long as stories like this are told, it will never be denied. Stay with us. More cases, more truth, coming soon.